Hi guys, welcome back. So we've got some news that Bevan Rodd and Sam Underhill have been cut from the England training squad, and that's prompted me to do a video I've been thinking about for a while. Who else is at risk and what is the risk rating of the remaining players? And I'm including those that are being rehabilitated with the squad as well, so they'll be in the graphics. The score of 0 is there's no risk of them being chopped. They're going to be in the 33-man World Cup squad. And then if it's a 5, I think they're definitely at risk. With Sam Underhill, I think it was sheer weight of numbers. He's primarily a 7. He hasn't played a lot this year. And when you've got Curry, Willis, Ben Earl, Pearson in there as well, there's so many 7 options. Something had to give, so I think that's not a surprise. And with Bevan Rodd, he's still a very young prop, not the biggest guy. I think he could be used as an impact sub, but probably not a starter. So I think he was always at risk. So what are the risk ratings for these other players? Now, this is what I'm saying. I think the reality is not what I would like it to be. And like I said, the rehab group, I'm assuming they are fully fit when it comes to selection for the World Cup actual squad. Okay, so by position. In loosehead prop, I'm giving Ellis Genge a 0. I think he is going come what may. I think that's pretty easy. But the other 3, Marler, Rapava Ruskin and Vunipola, I think they're all at risk. Rapava Ruskin maybe a little bit more because, he's a new guy there. Marler and Vunipola have been there, done that. Do they go for Marler for the extra scrummaging? Vunipola, well, Borthwick likes his experience. And Rapava Ruskin, I think, is the athlete of the lot. The guy with the most potential, but without any experience. So I think they're all at risk. So 3s and 4s for them. The hookers, we've still got 4 there in contention. I think Blamire is the highest risk. I just don't feel like he's right there in the thinking of Steve Borthwick. Theo Dan, I'm putting actually as a 2, fairly low, just because his season's been so great. That's hard to ignore. Jamie George is a 0 because he is definitely going the only experienced hooker of the lot. And Walker, in and out with injury, hasn't established himself with England at all. So I think he is a 4. So I think George and Dan are the most likely to go, and Blamire and Walker definitely a risk. But they're probably going to take 3 of those 4. So a chance for everyone. Tightheads, slightly lower risk rating because there's only 3 of them in contention, although they might only take 2. I think Sinclair is a 1, although there's still a risk. His back's not the greatest sometimes. He hasn't played the greatest, but he has got the experience, so I think he's the most likely to go. Stewart, I think, is likely to go, but still a bit of a risk there as well. Or do they go for the experience of Dan Cole? But I think he's slightly more risky because he is that bit older. So they've all got a great chance they could all go. Into the second rows, I think Johnny Hill is a 4, may well not go. Maratoje is a 0, he's definitely going. Atoje is an interesting one. So many comments around Atoje that he's dropped off a bit. I think maybe the summary is that when he was younger, he was that lithe, athletic guy who wasn't the big carrier, but was a real disruptor, a real pain in the bum. He stepped up his carrying game. He's put on the bulk, and he's lost a little bit of that agility, and maybe he's stuck in between. But he's the experience, he's the class, he's still going. I'm still putting George Martin as a 5, even though Borthwick knows him well, but he's a complete youngster, a complete unknown on the international scene, so still very risky. Ribbons, I think, has got a fair chance of going, although he's never nailed down a spot, and even though Ollie Chesham is still in that rehab group, I think they're desperate to get him fit, so he is very likely to go if he gets fit, so I'm saying 1 there. Back rows, a 0 to start with for Tom Curry, he is going. Don Brandt, I think, very close with a 2, although not definite, having still got a Vunipola in the squad and Tom Willis in the squad. That's 3 out-and-out 8s, which is probably more than what I thought they might carry. So I think there's still risk for Don Brandt, but he has been a favourite for Borthwick. Ben Earl, hell of a player, hell of a season, but never broken into that England team, so I think he's still high. If Laws is fit, he goes 0. That is easy. Ludlam, I think, has got a really good chance of going, having performed well for Borthwick, so he's a 2. Pearson, yes, he's a guy I'd like to go, but I still think he's a very high risk of not going, because if he's going as a 7, there's so much competition, or he could go as a utility player, but then Ludlam's probably got that spot a bit more certain. Jack Willis, not quite a 0, but I'm saying a 1. Maybe they'll go for different 7s, but maybe he should be a 0. Tom Willis, well, he's the youngster to break in ahead of Don Brandt and Vunipola. That would be stellar, but I think it's a 5 for him. Very high at risk, and Vunipola back into the squad, the old stager. So I think a 4 maybe. Maybe it could be a 3, I'm not sure. Okay, let's look at the backs to finish with as well. Danny Kerr, I think, is the outsider as a 4, even though I'd say he's, probably the best scrum half for me in those 3. But Van Poortvliet is the heir apparent for Youngs. I think he'll pretty much definitely go. I'm saying 1 just in case they go with experience. And Ben Youngs, I'm saying, is a 2. I think he's fairly likely to go because it's Borthwick. Farrell's a 0. Obviously, he's going. Ford and Smith are absolutely fighting it out. I'm saying Ford maybe just edging it because of his experience with Borthwick. I probably prefer Smith to go, but I do think Ford maybe has a slightly better chance. But tell me what you think there. But I think a real disparity of a 0 for Farrell and both guys at risk as well. Into the centres, and Joe Marchant, I'm saying a 3, not a definite. I mean, there's 2 clear outside centres there, I think, in Marchant and Slade, but they could use Lawrence as an outside centre as well. So I'm saying maybe he's a 2 or a 3. Porter's like the outsider there, so I'm putting him as 5. I'm not quite sure how he'd get picked over any of the others, obviously assuming Ollie Lawrence gets back fit. Slade with his experience, I think Borthwick will want that, even though many say he's not quite the player he was. So I'm saying 1. Tuolangi, if he's fit, I think pretty much goes 1. And Lawrence a 1 as well. So Slade, Tuolangi, Lawrence, I think are pretty much certainties. And then it's whether they take Marchant, Porter, or do they take Farrell as another centre. Then maybe the most competitive area in the backs, the back 3. Arundel, I think, is at risk of not going, even though he's got that explosive pace. He doesn't have the experience, and I think they could go with one of Arundel or Murley because they are fairly similar, but Murley's the more all-round player. I think he absolutely has to go Murley and probably start. Looking him in the training videos, he looks like a younger, quicker, more powerful Jack Noel, really, doesn't he? So I think he is a guy that could go, and if he goes, then it might well knock Arundel out. Thockenasiga still at risk with a 4, although I have argued England could do with that big winger. Supposedly he's in great fitness, great form in training, so he's got a chance, but still an outsider. Then we've got Malins and Daly probably duking it out for that utility role. Maybe they just take one of those 2. Maybe Daly's got the edge, I don't know, but I think Malins has been in there with Borthwick, so he's at a lower risk. Johnny May, I think, is at a really high risk there. I'm not sure if he goes. If Watson goes as your all-rounder, your experience, do you need Johnny May? So he's a 5. And then Stewart and Watson are absolute nailed-on definites to go at 0. So that's how I see the risk of the England players as they build towards their warm-up games. Let me know what risk rating you'd give them and why, and I'll catch you next time.